You've just stepped into the Caring Corner, where life's caregiving challenges meet a whole lot of heart and a dash of sass. I'm Michelle O'Neill, and I'm here to serve up insights, inspiration, and real life tools to help you navigate caring for your kids and aging loved ones without forgetting about you. Expect everything from time management hacks and emotional wellness strategies to technology tips sprinkled with humor and tenacity. Are you ready? Let's get to it. You might not see yourself as a caregiver. Maybe you're not the one living with your parent full time, coordinating their every need, right? Maybe you're not the primary contact at the doctor's office or the one managing their medication. But let me tell you something. If you're the one running errands, if you're the one offering emotional support, or even just checking in to make sure everything's okay, you're a caregiver. And your role is just as critical and often just as exhausting as the one carrying the title. Hey, I'm Michelle O'Neill, your host and resident emotional wellness coach, and welcome to the Caring Corner. Today, I want to shine a light on the role that doesn't get nearly enough attention: secondary caregiving. It's the work you do behind the scenes, the calls, the groceries, the quiet emotional support. It's the kind of caregiving that often goes unrecognized, but the toll it takes, that's all too real. Secondary caregiving might not be your entire life, but it finds its way into every part of your life, your work, your relationships, your health. And for many of you, it comes with this quiet guilt, a feeling that no matter how much you're doing, it's not enough, that you should be doing more. Today, we're going to explore what it really means to be a secondary caregiver, the hidden emotional toll that it takes, and most importantly, how you can start protecting your energy and showing up for yourself. Because believe me, your role matters more than you know. So imagine this: you're sitting at your desk, finally tackling a work deadline that's been nagging at you all week, and your phone rings. It's your sister. She's the primary caregiver for your mom. She's asking if you can just swing by the pharmacy after work because mom's prescription needs to be picked up. Well, of course, you're going to say yes. You always do. After all, it's just one little small task, right? But then there's the doctor's appointment that you promised to drive her to on Saturday, and the quick grocery run that you agreed to handle last week that turned into a full, all out 2 hour shopping trip. It's not your full time job, but it's threaded through your life in ways that are hard to ignore. Or maybe you're the one keeping track of the finances and you're sitting at the kitchen table late at night trying to make sense of the bills that are stacking up: Medicare statements, copays, utility payments. It's a puzzle that no one else wants to figure out, so, well, it falls on you. And even though you know this work is so important, no one really sees all that you're doing. They just assume that it's taken care of. After all, you're the financial whiz, right? So you know what to do. This is the reality of secondary caregiving. It's the quiet support that you provide while trying to balance your own responsibilities, your job, your family, your sanity. And yet, because you're not the primary caregiver, it often feels, well, invisible. No one sees the hours that you spend driving back and forth or the emotional load that you carry as you check in with your loved ones to see how they're doing. And let's be honest, sometimes there's a resentment that kind of bubbles up to the surface. You love your family deeply, but you can't help feeling frustrated at the interruptions, the constant juggling, and the fact that no one seems to realize just how much you're giving. And here's the thing, your role is vital. Without you, the primary caregiver wouldn't have the support that they need, and your loved one wouldn't get the same level of care. The work you do, girlfriend, it matters. It's time someone said that out loud. The work you do matters. But this kind of caregiving doesn't come without its cost. Let's talk about the toll it takes on your time, your emotions, and your well-being, and why it's so important to recognize and address it. So, I want to talk about how secondary caregiving differs from primary caregiving because, in a lot of ways, they're close. And one way is your scope of responsibility. Primary caregivers manage the daily, all encompassing tasks like meals and hygiene and round the clock care. And secondary caregivers step in for specific roles like financial management, driving to appointments, or providing emotional support. But these tasks often come with less structure and more unpredictability. AARP reports that 40% of caregivers identify as secondary caregivers. Did you hear that? 40% balancing part-time responsibilities on top of their other obligations. The primary caregivers experience visible exhaustion, but secondary caregivers often face guilt and invisibility. They wrestle with thoughts like, am I really helping enough? Or even resentment for the interruptions that caregiving adds to their already full lives. According to National Alliance for Caregiving, 45% of secondary caregivers feel that their efforts are undervalued compared to the primary caregivers, leading to feelings of frustration and isolation. While primary caregivers report higher physical exhaustion due to hands-on care, and secondary caregivers experience intense chronic stress and decision fatigue. Both roles are associated with heightened risk of anxiety and depression. But for secondary caregivers, the emotional labor often goes unnoticed. A study by Family Caregiving Alliance reveals that 23% of secondary caregivers report moderate to severe mental health challenges tied to their role. So, with all this said, I want to give you 3 examples of how secondary caregiving can affect your lives and some of the emotional toll that can come with it. One we're going to talk and call the sibling juggler. So, your sister handles most of the daily caregiving for your mom, right? But every week, without fail, there's another task that lands in your lap. Tonight, it's sorting through piles of Medicare statements and utility bills, statements that are so confusing that they might as well be written in code. Your kids are finally asleep. The house is quiet, and this should be your time to actually unwind. But instead, you're double checking due dates and reconciling accounts, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on your shoulder like a old heavy coat. It's just one thing you keep telling yourself, but that one thing becomes another. And before you know it, your quiet evenings have become anything but yours. Or what about the on-call helper? You're not the one living with dad, but you might as well be. Your phone buzzes mid-meeting at work. Can you take dad to his cardiologist tomorrow? Is your brother the primary caregiver and he sounds in a panic? Of course you'll help. How could you not step in? You rearrange your day, squeezing in calls between the appointment and the pharmacy run that always seems to inevitably follow, right? The next day, it's another ask. The home health care aide called out and, can you check in on dad? You don't live in the same house, but his care has become part of your daily life, slipping into every crack and crevice, and you're left feeling torn. You're grateful to be able to help, but stretched so thin that your own life feel like it's just, well, slipping through your fingers. And what about caring for the caregiver when the primary caregiver is, well, is your mom? The primary caregiver who has been the rock of the family for years. She's the one holding it all together, managing your dad's care, running the house, and making sure everyone's needs are met. But now you're starting to notice the cracks. Her health isn't, well, what it used to be. Maybe she's forgetting to eat because she's just too focused on your dad's needs, his medications that he has to take, his meals. Or she just brushes off her own doctor's appointments because there just isn't any time when you can really see that she needs care too. And it hits you. But how do you step in without stepping on her toes? How do you offer help to the person who's always been the one giving it? Suddenly, you're not just a secondary caregiver, you're caring for the caregiver. You're balancing respect for her independence with the reality that she's aging too, and the weight of caregiving is taking its toll on her. It's a delicate dance, one that comes with its own emotional complexity. Look, nearly 53 million Americans are caregivers, with 21 million acting as secondary caregivers. This includes tasks like emotional support, financial help, and scheduling. Secondary caregivers spend an average of 10 to 20 hours a week on caregiving tasks, often on top of a full-time job and personal responsibilities. Women make up 66% of caregivers, many juggling caregiving alongside professional and family obligations. So, what do you do? Well, the first step is to recognize your role. Call it what it is. Let's recognize something important. What you're doing is caregiving, plain and simple. The errands, the emotional support, the financial contributions, they all matter. And recognizing your role isn't about labeling yourself for the sake of it. It's about understanding the value that you bring and using that understanding to advocate for yourself. When you say, I'm helping with groceries, it might not sound like much, right? But when you say, I'm contributing to caregiving by ensuring that my mother has meals, it reframes the value of your work. Also, boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines that help protect your energy and your emotional well being. Start by identifying tasks that are manageable and those that, well, that aren't. Instead of being on call 24/7, commit to specific times of days that you're available. If a task feels too overwhelming, say, I can't do that right now, but I can help with something else. You don't have to do it alone. Even as a secondary caregiver, talk to the primary caregiver and other family members about how you can work together. For example, look, I can handle the finances, but I'll need someone else to take over the grocery shopping. Or I'll drive mom to her appointments this month, But can we rotate the role starting next month? Listen, caregiving, whether primary or secondary, isn't a small thing. It's life changing, both for the person you're helping and for you. Your work, whether it's picking up prescriptions, managing finances, or being the emotional rock, matters. It's the glue that holds so much together, even when no one sees it. Look, let's get real. Giving everything you've got without protecting your own energy isn't sustainable. You can't keep pouring from that empty cup and expect to feel whole. Recognizing your role isn't just about labeling yourself. It's about owning the fact that what you're doing is important and it matters. It's about seeing yourself as a vital part of this caregiving puzzle and having the courage to say, I need space for me too. Setting boundaries isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Asking for help doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. When you take a moment to pause, to breathe, to draw a line in the sand, you're not just taking care of yourself, you're ensuring that you have something left to give to the people who rely on you. And don't forget this, you matter just as much as the people you're caring for. You're not a sidekick, a side character in their story. You're a whole person with needs, dreams, and a right to survive, thrive, and flourish. Hey, if today's episode spoke to you, take one small step. Maybe it's using my 3 minutes to calm guided meditation to reset and recharge after a stressful day. Or maybe it's booking a call with me to talk through how you can balance your caregiving role with your own needs. You don't have to do this alone. Let's figure this out together. I am so glad that you took the time to listen to this today. I am here for you. And until next time, I urge you to take care. Bye-bye. All right, that's a wrap for today at the Caring Corner. We've tackled some big topics, but remember, you're not in this alone. Subscribe to keep the wisdom and warmth coming. And stay tuned for amazing guests who'll be joining us to help round out your caregiving toolkit. Catch you next time and keep conquering those challenges.